Now we'll continue with the next process, like how we can set up the Jenkins master and slave node configurations. Once we create this master slave architecture, how we can able to create some CD pipeline and implement the changes. So we'll create one VM, and in that VM we'll install all the required build tools. We are going to launch a new node of same 22.04 version AMI, and as a root user we'll be installing JDK first, and once JDK is installed we'll need to ensure the Git is already present in the machine. If it is not present, you can install Git, and then we need to install Maven. So for the installation of Maven, you can refer this particular link. So once Maven is installed, your infrastructure is ready with the required tools. But now the point is how you can able to establish a connection between these servers. So for example, this is one virtual machine and this is another one. So we have to connect this Jenkins slave node with the Jenkins master node. So whenever we try to perform the SSH connection, what are the three parameters we need? First thing is the host name, and then the username and the user, right? So this credential, we are going to use a key-based authentication. So we'll be creating the SSH keys. That is nothing but the public key and private key, right? So if you can recollect the Linux module, on that module itself, we discussed about this process, how to create SSH and all. Same technique we are going to implement in our current process. Once the tools are installed, you can create one new user called DevOps admin user in this machine, in the slave node. And for that particular user, we'll be creating the keygen, the SSH key pair by using SSH keygen command. And as part of this command, you should be able to find a public key and private key. So usually this public key is something, used to create the authorized key basically. So based upon the content of the public key, we create one authorized key, and that key acts as a token for authentication. And that's it. So once the key is ready, your node will be completed with all the required prerequisite to set up your Jenkins master and slave. So once the node is ready, you can go ahead and log into your Jenkins master dashboard, and through that dashboard itself, we can able to integrate Jenkins nodes. So I'll execute the steps one by one. So let me launch a new node. We have created one Jenkins server, right? So let me start that server as well and let it be up and running. So now let me launch a new node, and I just tag it as a slave node 1. And you can choose Ubuntu 22.04 as a stable AMI version and leave all the parameters default BT2 micro, and you can use our existing key pair, whatever you associated to that instance. That's it. So enter the name of the instance, Ubuntu 20.04 version, T2 micro, and the key pair. So with this parameter, just launch your node. So once the node is launched, you can able to get into that node first. It's coming up now. So we can see the node is up and running now. Let me log into this node. So we'll need to access the root level and update the default packages. So we are at this level now, updating default packages, and then we'll see how to install JDK. For the installation of JDK, you can follow the same process which we have used in Jenkins server management, right? So you can use the same command. And another important thing is the installation of JDK version is purely depends upon the application team, because the application, whatever we are going to build, that JDK should be compatible to the application. So that build server should be enabled with all the required versions. So depends upon the application team's requirement, will be setting up this particular installation process. Sometimes if you install the latest version of JDK, it might not be compatible with their application source code. The application libraries, whatever they use, it might not be compatible. So we have installed JDK 17 version of this node. Once you have this done, you can verify the installation of your Git. As I said, Git will be part of your AMI, so it is already available. And now we'll be installing Maven. So now you can see MVN version. So this is the version 3.8.7 is the one which we have installed, and this is the Maven home directory. So tomorrow, if you want to set up the Maven tool on Jenkins Master under tools configuration, you can define this path there. All right. So it is using the latest version of JDK, whatever we installed in this machine. Simple. So this is how we install all the required tools. So ultimately we need Maven. So to install Maven, JDK is a prerequisite. So we are explicitly installing it. Even without running this command, if you directly use apt install Maven, means it will install the latest version of JDK, like OpenJDK 21 version will be installed automatically by this package, and then it installs Maven on top of it. Correct. So that is the thing. And once the tool is ready, we have to create the users in Jenkins slave node to connect with the master node. So to do that, on the same machine, let's create one new user. You can consider only the lines that are enabled. Okay, just these are the committed lines. Okay, so no need to worry about the Docker and all now. Once we start with the Docker module, we'll see how to use Dockers in the slave node and access the create a content images and all. So no need to install Docker at this point of time. So this is the command, user add command, followed by the user ID, and we are going to enable the bin bash terminal and creating the default home directory for DevOps. Now, once user is created, you can log into that user, and now if I say ls-a, we just have the user profile. So all that you should do here is you have to create the key pair. SSH Keygen command is to create the key pair, and we are going to create this public key and private key in the default home directory of DevOps admin user. So that's fine. Just press enter, and we're not interested to create any password phrase. So you can simply skip this by giving enter. That's it. Now, if I say ls-a, I should be able to see one new folder, .sh folder has been created here. So just get into that folder and you can find two components. One is your public key and private key, right? So if you read the content of that key, so this is the private key which we are going to use in our Jenkins node, and this is something we are going to create an authorized key. So once a public key is available, based upon the public key, we are going to create one authorized keys. But if you see the access level of this authorized key, it can be accessed by all the users in the machine, but it should be restricted. Only the owner should have complete access to the file. So you can change the access mode by executing chmod command. What is the purpose of chmod? It is just to change the access mode of this particular data set, directory. So now you can see this file, not only that file, what are the files we have in this SSH key folder? It's all completely owned by the DevOps admin user, read and write access. Other users will not have any access to read even. So this is how we maintain the keys. And once the keys are ready, you can use this key to set up your Jenkins node in the dashboard. So let's move on to the next level. So this is how we prepare the infrastructure. So with this, we have prepared this Jenkins slave node with all the required tools, and all these parameters are available now for connection. So once this is done, you have to get into your Jenkins dashboard. Under manage Jenkins, you can find something called slave node configurations. You can add a new node and pass all the required parameters to enable it. So let's start our Jenkins dashboard. So I just log into this machine now. So once you get into the Jenkins dashboard, go to this manage Jenkins, and here you can see something called nodes. Click on this nodes, and you can able to see the list of nodes that are associated in this Jenkins master. So we have a built-in node that is something used to run any jobs in the master. And now we are going to create a new node here. Just click on new node and enter the node name. So I can simply use the node name. It can be anything of your choice. Okay, it does not like the same. It can be anything, and mark it as a permanent agent. Node name and mark it as a permanent agent and create this. This will take you to the node configuration page. So in this node configuration page, you can give a valid description. Let it be like Java build. And here it is expecting the number of executors. So whenever you schedule a job to run in the slave node, how many jobs you can run in parallel? So the parallel jobs can be identified with the help of this number of executors. So by default, it says 1. If you want, you can make it to 2 or 3 as per the need. But the number of executors purely depends upon the underlying architecture of the node. If you're running 10 jobs at the same time, your underlying node should be capable to run all those 10 jobs with respect to the memory utilization, CPU utilization, everything, correct? And now, once the node is connected from Jenkins Master, so we have something called remote root directory. So the purpose of remote root directory is to identify the default directory where we can create our workspace. Like if you can see our yesterday's job, the jobs, whatever we have executed, it all runs in its default workspace folder, right? In Jenkins Master node. So in my Jenkins Master, it has created a workspace folder to manage all my project artifacts, everything. Similarly, if we connect to our slave node, what will be the default directory for the slave node? That will be defined by this remote root directory option. So here you need to enter the remote root directory. So let me use the home directory of DevOps admin user, because Jenkins Master, I want to connect to my slave node as a DevOps admin user. So I can use this DevOps admin user's default directory, and I can specify the label name as slave 1. So label is something used to uniquely identify the node in your pipeline. So which is used to schedule your jobs to run in the pipeline. So just give some unique name. Let's use this node as much as possible. And what is the launch method we are going to use here is we are going to launch this node via SSH. So in order to access your node via SSH, we need these parameters, right? The host name, username, and the credentials. So that's what we need to pass here. So the host name is nothing but the private IP address of your slave node. Just copy the private IP address of the slave node and have it here. And the credentials, as of now, we haven't created any credentials for this slave node. So if you're accessing the nodes within a network, you can use a private IP address. That doesn't matter. Now, once you specify the host name, you need to create the credentials. As a DevOps admin user, I want to log into this machine. Means I need to maintain the credentials here. So to do that, from the same page, you can see as a GitHub credential was there. And here itself, we can add a new credential. Just click on add button and get into this Jenkins credential manager. So there's the same page what we used yesterday for creating the credentials. And this time it is not username with password. It should be SSH username with private key. Using this parameter only, I'm going to log into my machine. So here the ID, it can be like Jenkins slave node 1 credential. And the description also same. And the username should be this DevOps admin. And for this DevOps admin user, we need the key pair, right? So just click on this enter private key directly, and there is an option called add private key. Click on the add button, and in this multi-line text box, you can able to simply add your credential. This is a private key. So I need to copy this private key and have it here. That's it. We never create any password phrase, so let it be the default. So this is how we create any credential based upon the SSH username and private key. And this ID and description, it can be anything of your choice. It is just for a reference, but the username and the private key should be exactly same from that node. And once you create the credential, right, the key pair, whatever you maintain, the private key, whatever you maintain here, it will get encrypted. Even if you want, you can encrypt your username also. Treat username as secret means if you enable this checkbox, this username also will not be visible for you. So Jenkins will be encrypting the username and the password, and it will store the details in the Jenkins Credential Manager. Add it. So now, once the credentials are created, if you use a drop down here, you can find that credential. So now this credential composed of, it's a description which we pass, right? It composed of your username and private key in encrypted form. Now, once this is done, whenever we try to establish a connection between the servers, right, through your Linux machine through SSH, the host key verification strategies has to be done. So how your node can able to verify your keys means there are various strategies available. So initially we were using something called known host file verification strategy. This was completely a manual approach. We never use any tools to create this. What we need to here is we have to manually create one known host file and add the target machine's IP address and other stuff. And the second method is manually provide a key verification strategy. So this is something we can able to provide the verification whenever you try to establish connection to the server. Like from Jenkins Master, whenever you try to establish connection to the slave node, you have to verify that key. And the third method is manually trusted key verification strategy. So this is something recommended approach. Why? Because it will be a one-time activity. Once you verify for the very first time, if you verify the key pair, you can able to start the slave node at any point of time. So it will not expect any manual verification for each and every connection. And the last method is non-verify. It is something not recommended in real time. It is unsecured way to establish connection. Here, for this host key verification strategy, we need to use the third option and ensure that you enable this checkbox. Require manual verification for initial connection. Correct. That's it. So these are all the parameters required to set up your slave node. I repeat, go to Jenkins, manage Jenkins option, click on add new node, enter the node name and get into this configuration page. And in this config page, update your number of executors, your description, and the remote root directory is very much important to maintain the workspace, and then the label to uniquely identify the node and what type of method you're going to use to launch your machine means we're going to use SSH agent with launch agent via SSH, and to do that, what are the parameters we need, like host name and username, like just identify here and maintain the verification strategy, and that's it. Leave all the parameters default and save the configuration. As soon as you save the configuration, right, you can see it is trying to start. Okay, one node build node is up and running, and this second is busy. So if you go to the node configuration here, I mean dashboard here, see it is trying to launch. This node is being launched, but it is not yet launched actually. 0 of 2 executors. It's busy. So what you can do means you have to perform this host key verification. So we have used a strategy called host key verification strategy, and that too for the very first time. So just go to this node configuration dashboard and select this trust SSH host key. It's a one-time activity for the very first time, and you need to confirm this key actually. This is what manually trusted key verification strategy for the very first time. Just confirm this. So once you confirm this, right, what happens actually? It will connect to the node. It will connect to this node as the DevOps admin user and identify the key pair and compare the private key, whatever you mentioned in that Jenkins master, with the authorized key. If these key pairs are matching, then your connection will be successfully established, right? So this is how you actually perform the host key verification strategy in your Jenkins. You see? So now you can see we have enabled this key pair and it is up and running. The node is successfully connected here. We have 2 executors available now for our access. So going forward, whenever you run any job, just identify this node by using its label. So the label is slave1. Use this label name in your pipeline. It will route that request to the corresponding node. You see? So like this, we can able to add any number of nodes to your Jenkins master. So whenever we try to establish a connection to any remote server, we need to provide the key pairs. So the username with valid key pair. So how your node can verify the key pair means by using any of these options. So first option is known host file verification strategy that was used in a traditional methods, like we have to manually maintain the host file, and that file will be having the entry of that target machine's IP address, the username, and other parameters for verification. And apart from that, there is something called manually provided key verification strategy. This is also same as like your manually trusted key verification strategy. Both are similar, but if you use this manually provided key strategy means for each and every time whenever you try to connect to your node, you have to explicitly verify the connection. But here you can do it only once. For the very first time alone, if you verify the connection, it just continue to automatically start your integration with the slave node whenever you start your node. And the last option is it is not recommended basically. Sometimes within your closed network, if you don't want to pass or verify any credentials, you can use this one. But in real time, we never recommend this approach. We use manually trusted key verification. The process, whatever we are doing here, it's all same as like what we do in real time environment. It's all real time use case I'm giving you now. So now we just log into this node. Let's go to our Jenkins dashboard. So from this Jenkins dashboard, we can able to configure our projects. So already you can see this project, whatever we created, it is scheduled to run in any available node, right? But if you want to explicitly give a node name, for example, I have created a slave node with this label, slave one. So you can use this label name and route that job to run at the slave node. It is possible. So that is the way we can able to identify the nodes at runtime. So to do that, there is only one parameter change needed in your pipeline script. That is, instead of agent as any, you have to add one tag, agent label slave one. So earlier it was the label name, what I mentioned here is slave one. Just copy this and have it here. So my requirement is I want to run this job in this particular agent. So this agent parameter, it can be applicable at the job level or it can be applicable at the stage level also. Consider I want to run this particular job in one particular node. Like this particular process should be done on slave node 1 and this process should be done on slave node 2. Like that we can able to route the stages also to a specific node. It is possible. Once you identify the node name, apply the changes and let's run the job again. So the latest build number 4, it is getting executed and it is done now. So if you go to the console output of this build number 4, you can see this build number 4, it is getting executed on the slave node. Under this home directory of DevOps admin, it should create one workspace folder. But my previous yesterday session, the job was build number 3 was running in the Jenkins Master node. So ultimately, we create a job in Jenkins Master node and schedule to run it in the slave node. That is the purpose of master. So the entire workspace, everything will get created in our slave node now with all the required artifacts, the source code repositories, everything. So going forward, you can use this pipeline script like this. This pipeline script, whatever we have created, we can enhance the script now. So just create a node. It's very simple. Okay, you need a node with all the required tools and access level. Once the connection is established, you can route that scheduling to a particular node using agent parameter. In our last session, we use agent as any, and here you can give the node name. That's simple. So once the node is identified, then we'll see how to enhance the process. Like in our yesterday session, we just use a display echo command, right, to print the message. But now we are going to use some Jenkins plugins to perform the actual task. What is the purpose of SSH checkout? So already we have the source code available. There is a repository. Assume the developer has committed the changes. Okay, this is a URL. So I want to download that source code. I want to clone that entire repository into my build environment. So for that, I can simply use a Git plugin. So the simple command Git followed by that clone URL will download the entire repository to that workspace folder. So here we are not going to use a command like Git clone and all. Git clone means it is a Git CLI command, but through Jenkins, you can directly use your plugins, Jenkins plugins actually available there, right? So if you can see this, let me run the job here with this lines of code. Just I want to download the source code, simple. Apply the changes and run the job again. And here, this is the console output of build number 5. It is running on slave node in this workspace folder. And as part of your SSH checkout stage, it is cloning that repository into that node. So it means under DevOps admin's home directory, you should find one workspace folder with the source code. So if you go to the node here, you can see the workspace folder. And under workspace folder, you can find the project directory with the source code changes, whatever we made in the remote repository. Easy. So now how I get this command? Jenkins is using the declarative script we are writing this project, right? So whenever we talk about the declarative pipeline script, we have something called snippet generator. If you go to the configuration page of your pipeline, you can see something called pipeline syntax. Okay, just get into this pipeline syntax link. It will take you to snippet generator. And based upon the build step, based upon the plugins, what are plugins you used, you can able to prepare the build step actually. So in our case, the very first stage is to perform the SCM checkout. For that, I need a Git tool, right? So the Git plugin is already installed in my Jenkins Master node. So I can able to explore that here. See, Git is available. So once I specify the Git as a sample step name, it is asking for some input parameters. And this is the URL which I want to access. And by default, it is specifying as master as a branch name and doesn't require any credentials. So with this parameter, if I click on generate script, I get the script here. So this is what I just maintained in my pipeline stage. So by default, it will pick up the source code from the master branch. But sometimes what happens, developers might do the build from any specific branch name. So in that case, you can simply change the branch name here. Instead of master, if I say feature one and generate the script, it will create one script using this branch name. So for default branch, we no need to use this branch parameter, but if it is any other branch, you can use git branch followed by the branch name, comma, the URL. You see? So this is how we can able to continuously integrate the changes for further testing. This is about SSH Checkout Stage. So now that I have the source code available in this directory, this is the workspace folder where I have my source code. So once the code is available, on the next stage, I want to perform the build. So in order to perform the build, we are going to use a build tool. So yesterday we were talking about the Maven build tool, right? Which uses the pom.xml file and the Maven goal. And to run this Maven build, we can use the Maven command, mbn clean and package command. So this is what you need to use in your script here. So how to create command here? Means just again go to your snippet generator, and here you can find something called sh, the shell command, which you can able to run. So using Groovy script, we are going to invoke a shell command or a Python command or any other external scripting you can invoke. That's what we're trying to do now. So my requirement is, as part of this stage 2, I want to perform Maven build. So the command here is mvn clean cache. So this I want to run, this command I want to run under the workspace folder like this, mvn clean package. I have the source code available in this directory and the pom.xml file available here. So from this home directory, I want to run the command, mvn clean package command. So how to do it through your CSD pipeline means just create one stage with this parameter. So we got the command here. Simply use this command in your stage. That's it. So now what is the purpose of package goal? It will identify the source code. It will compile the code, perform the automated testing, as well as it will create the package in target folder. So as of now, this directory is not having any target folder because we never maintain the target folder or war file in the source code repository. It will maintain within the local machine. It is ignored by Git. Once you perform build, it creates the target folder now. If you simply say mvn package, right, it will also work. But my requirement is, if the target folder is already present, if it is having any other artifacts in that, I want to clean it up first. It will search for the target folder. As of now, there is no target folder, but if it present, it will clean up the target folder and then create the package in that folder. And the package command, it will just perform all these activities. It compiles the code, test, and then create the artifacts. So how it will take the test means my source code repository is already having the test cases. Like if you can see the src folder, and the src folder, I have a main folder with my application source code, Java programs, and the resources, something like your application properties and the HTML files, everything is available there. And in addition to that, we have something called test folder. Under test folder, I have the unit test cases. So using JUnit testing tool, we are going to run this test case. So as part of my build activity, I want to complete the unit test cases and then create the package. That is the reason we use mvn clean package command there. So with these parameters, just apply the changes and let's run the job now. Build number 6 is getting triggered. And if you want, you can observe the process, like what is actually happening in this build. You can observe this in the console output. See, it is running the very first stage, SCM checkout stage. And as part of the second stage, application build stage, it is performing mvn clean package command. So what we are discussing about this command, it will try to download all the dependencies. What are the dependencies you maintain in that pom.xml file? It will download all the dependencies. And it is a one-time activity. For the very first time, it will try to download and it saves the changes in a Maven default directory. Once the dependencies are downloaded, it will perform the build. See, it is covering the unit test cases and it is running our test case, whatever we prepared in our source code repository. Once the unit testing is completed, it is getting test report also. So as of now, it has executed one test case. There is no failure, no errors. So once test case is completed successfully, then it is trying to create the war file. Build is successful and it has created the war file. This is the name of the war file that gets generated under target folder. So how the file name is defined means it just depends upon your pom.xml file. So in pom.xml file, we define the properties of that application build. What is the name of the artifact we create, the version number, the packaging, everything, right? So based upon these parameters, it creates one WAR file. And this WAR file you can find in the workspace folder. So if you go to your Jenkins node, now you can see the target folder. Once the build is completed, it's create a target folder. And if you go to the target folder, there you can find the WAR file. So this is a WAR file, application artifacts that they created. Maybe the initial setup might looks lengthy process, but consider this on the developer's perspective. Developers, they no need to perform all these things manually. Okay, once they commit the code to the source code repository, automatically this pipeline job gets executed. It will compile the code and create the artifacts and maintain the source code artifact library. And in the next stage, we'll see how to deploy to the target environment. There are two things to understand here. So whenever we execute any stage, as part of this stage, we can able to trigger the email notification to the users. Through that email, we'll be sharing the status of the job, whether the job is successful or failure, user will be notified there. So that is the only way we can able to notify the users about the status of a job. It can be a successful state or a failure state. So I'll talk about the email notification in some time. Second thing is, if this repository is being used by multiple teams or multiple developers, it is completely their responsibility. Okay, like which team is working on this particular source code change. Once the changes are ready, whether they want to immediately trigger the build or they want to consolidate the things. Like for example, if more than one teams are working together on the same project, once their changes are completed, then we can trigger the job, which will take the latest repository and perform build. Or for each and every commit, if you want to trigger the build, that is also possible. So that concept we'll be learning while discussing about the build triggers option. Let's say for this particular release, I want to update the source code repository. So any application team should be aware of teams who are all going to use it. So while we send the email notification, instead of just sending the email to that particular person, we can add the DL ID list. So it will reach all the developers who are using the particular source code repository or the project. So we'll see how to deploy these artifacts. We just create the artifacts and it is in a build server. Like in our previous sessions also, we were talking about the environments. So we have a dev which is promptly used by developers to create the source code. Once the changes are ready, they will commit the changes to source code repository. And as soon as they commit the changes, our Jenkins pipeline will get triggered and will perform build in the build environment. The slave node, whatever we consider, right? It is a build environment, you can say. Node 1. I can consider this slave node 1 as a build server. As part of the build, we have created the artifacts. Once the artifact is ready, we have to promote that artifact to the target environment. Let's say I want to promote it to my QA environment for QA testing. And from there, I can promote it to UAT environment for UAT testing, right? So we need to understand the target environments now. So these target environments are also a dedicated server. And this target server can be considered as the web application server to host the application. So what we're going to do here is we're going to launch one VM here. It is a dedicated server. We're going to launch one VM and I can consider it as my web application server. And this web application server, it can be anything based upon your Tomcat web application server or Nginx or HTTPD server, anything for that matter. So usually these web application servers are used to run your web applications. The WAR file, whatever we have created, we can able to run that WAR file using this web application server. So for for your Java-based applications, we'll be using a Tomcat. And for other applications like Python-based or Node or Angular-based web applications, we can use Nginx or HTTPD, depends upon the requirement. So now what we're going to do here is we are going to add one more server to our architecture. So it will take care of all the dependencies. Let's say in my case, if you see here, I have a target folder, right? If you navigate to the target folder, you can see a lot of components. Apart from the WAR file, we have many other components available. So all these components are automatically generated and it's all required to run your WAR file. So there should be one web application server that should able to take care of all these dependencies and automatically run your thing. So Tomcat is designed for that particular Java-based applications. So if you want to set up your Tomcat server, we are going to update our architecture. At this point, we have just Jenkins Master and Slave. Now we are going to add one more server, like the Tomcat web application server. So after all, this is also a VM we are going to launch. So the purpose of this to run the artifacts created in the build environment. Okay, so this can be considered as a QA or UA. Even in production also, we can have the Tomcat web application server configured. So now to set up my Tomcat server, I need to use some tools. So what are all the tools we need to install on the Tomcat server? Means the Tomcat is based upon JDK. So we need JDK first of all, and then Tomcat. That's it. So launch one node and then set up your Tomcat tool there. And this Tomcat also runs as a service. It's a web service, right? So it runs in port 8080. So as like how you enable the port 8080 for Jenkins, similarly for this node also, you need to enable port 8080. Easy. Now the difference is earlier we have attached the slave node, this build server as a node to Jenkins Master. But the Tomcat is not a node to Jenkins Master, it's just a remote server. So once you set up your Tomcat server, you have to attach the Tomcat server to Jenkins Master as a external remote server. Once you attach this through your Jenkins Master, we can able to copy the artifacts from the slave node into the Tomcat server. So the Jenkins Master acts as an interface between your slave and Tomcat server here. Correct. Like this, we can able to set up any number of servers. Okay. Like today, we are just discussing about the Tomcat. This is meant for my QA environment. Assume that. Similarly, tomorrow, if you want to set up the UAT or production, you can able to follow the same process. All my target servers can be considered as a remote server to Jenkins Master. So these are all just deploying the artifacts to the target machine. Through Jenkins Master only, we can able to create and schedule the projects to run. So for this demo, we'll see how to set up your Tomcat server and deploy your application. So for that, I'll be launching one new node, and I've just given all these steps to launch the node and update in this detailed documentation here. So we have completed our slave configuration, and on the same document, I've just added the steps to set up your Tomcat server. So we are going to launch one new node with Ubuntu 20.04 version and enable the port 8080 on that node. So the purpose of enabling this is we are going to use Tomcat, which runs in port 8080. Okay. And if you want to understand the installation procedures for Tomcat, this is the official page. You can get into this official page and understand how it is used. So we have various versions of Tomcat starting from version 9, 10, and 11. And even version 8 also available actually. We have it in artifacts. So if you want to install any of these versions, just go to the desired version here. Click on this download Tomcat 9 or 8, and you can see the installation procedures. So if you want to install Tomcat on your Windows machine, you can either download the zip file, extract the zip file, and then have it in one location and enable the service. Or you can use your Windows installer to automatically install Tomcat on your machine and make it up and running. But if you want to install it on your Linux-based machines, you can use a tar command, tar file actually. It's a zip file. Right click on this file, take the link address, and then use the duplicate command to download that file to your target node and then extract that file. So this is how we install Tomcat in our Linux box. All right. So to do this, first you log into the machine and install the required JDK package. So I'm going to install JDK here. Once JDK is installed, I want to download the tar file of this Tomcat artifacts, right? That's 8.5.99 something. Using wget command, I can download it. And once the zip file is downloaded, I can able to use the command to extract that file in this directory. And then once extracted, right, you can find one folder called bin folder. Within the bin folder, we have a script called startup.sh script to start your Tomcat server. All right. Once Tomcat server is up and running, you can simply use the public IP address of that machine followed by the port 8080 to access the Tomcat service. So the same process is applicable even for your Nginx or HTTPD or any other web application server on the target machine. There is no difference. Download, install the prerequisite, and then set up your actual tool and run it as a web service. All right. So once this is done, the next step is we are going to attach our Tomcat server with the Jenkins Master. So how to set up a connection to the remote server means, again, we need the users, right? We need to create the DevOps and user and create the key pair, and using as a key pair, we can able to connect. I'll talk about that step in some time. But for now, let's focus on this installation procedure, this one. All right. So let me get into this console and I'll launch one new node here. So here on this page, let me update this as a Tomcat server and choose Ubuntu 20.04 version. And once it is done, let it be T2 micro for now, there's no problem, and choose a key pair as available one. If you want, you can use executive group or you can create a new one. So just with these parameters, launch one node. The node is getting launched now. So once the node is available, your first step is to enable port 8080. Just go to the security tab of that instance and select the security group that is associated to that node. Edit inbound rule, add rule, and add port 8080. This area blocks. Save that as like how we did for Jenkins Master. Now, once this is done, you can log into the node, take the public IP address of the node server, right? Or Tomcat server. Just for my reference, I'm just tagging this. If you launch a node with Amazon Linux 2 AMI, that is applicable to run within your platform, right? If you take a snapshot of it, of that node, it will take the property of the particular Amazon Linux 2 machine. You can't port it to any other cloud platform if needed. But if you use Ubuntu, means it is global. Tomorrow you can able to use the same snapshot in any other cloud platform also. Without any issue, you can directly use it. So it depends. Okay, if you are completely utilizing your AWS resource, then you can use Amazon Linux 2 machine. Otherwise, just use a global one which can be easily portable. So when you log into free tier account, you have something called elastic IP address. This free tier account is eligible to have one elastic IP address. You can create one elastic IP address and assign it to the node. It is possible, but it is applicable to only one node actually. So in any of your real-time environments, we'll be using such elastic IP addresses to map it with your node, and it will not change till you terminate the machine. All right. So now that we have launched our node, and this is for installing Tomcat. So I just elevate the access to root level. And once it is done, you can update the default packages, apt update, and you can install JDK. Once JDK is installed, you can see Java version. And with this, we can go ahead and download this Tomcat file. So let's get into that C opt directory. So I just want to download. Usually in our computing environment, we maintain some file systems, right? So usually this /opt in Linux is used to maintain all the external tools and services. Any user-defined softwares or component-led tools we can maintain here. And /etc is something used for system components. So I use this path to maintain my Tomcat web application server components. See, I'm just downloading it. And you know how to identify the URL, right? Just go to that link. Just go to the desired version, right click on that file name and copy the link address and use that link address with the wget command to download that package. So once the package is downloaded, I can simply use my command to extract that file. It is something like unzip. Yeah. So now I can see I have this file downloaded and use that command to extract the file. That's it. Now, if I say ls, I can see one folder, extract folder available here. If I go to that folder, I can able to see the Tomcat components, like the bin folder, which contains the startup script to run your Tomcat. Everything is available. So once it is extracted, you can find the folder directly. Okay, it just extracted each and every level, subfolders, everything. So once this is done, what we usually do means this is the actual folder name, right? For our simplicity, we can rename the folder. Like instead of having the complete directory name, I just want to change it to Tomcat. Using mv move command in Linux, we can rename the folder. Now, if I say ls, I can see just Tomcat folder is there. And if I navigate to the Tomcat folder, I have a bin folder. And in this bin folder, I have startup.sh script. So what I can do here, I can simply use this command to start dot followed by the script name. So if you execute this shell script, it just start the Tomcat service. See here, the Tomcat service is started now, and it runs in default port 8080. Once the Tomcat service is up and running, you can take that public IP address of the machine, port 8080, to access that service. So this is the default page of Tomcat web application server. Easy. So this is how we set up the Tomcat server in any target node. The steps are given in detail. You can always refer to the step. So what next? What we need now? We need to establish a connection between the Jenkins Master and Tomcat server. So in order to establish a connection, this Tomcat server should have a valid username and the key pair, right? So how to enable that? How to update that means same process as like how you created the username and key pair in your slave node. The same process you can do the in a Tomcat server also. Okay, so let me create one user ID here. So this is our server, right? Tomcat server. So you can follow these steps, the steps whatever you use to set up your slave node. Using the same user add command, we can create a new user. Once user is created, you can log into the user and create the key pair. Once key pair is ready, just create an authorized key and ensure that the authorized key is accessible only by that owner. So change the access mode. Okay. So let's create one by one. So we'll create one key pair now. And once the key pair is ready, let's create a default directory, everything is same, and .ssh. So now, if we can see here, we have prepared this key pair. Once the key pair is created, we have to create the authorized keys based upon the public key. So the authorized key file name should be exactly same, authorized underscore keys. And then change the access mode of that file by using this command, chmod command. So now that our key is ready, and once the key is ready, we need to identify the integration between the servers. So I have a DevOps admin user, and this is the home directory for DevOps admin, right? And also I have installed Tomcat in this machine, and this is the home directory for Tomcat. But if you see here, this Tomcat service, right, whatever we installed, it is completely owned by the root user. So my requirement is from this Jenkins Master node, I want to connect to this Tomcat server as a DevOps admin user, correct? Not as a root user. So once I connect to this machine as a DevOps admin user, only, I want to do the deployment. It means this DevOps admin user should have complete access to this Tomcat folder to do some deployments and all. All right, but currently it is being owned by root user. So how we can able to manage this scenario means we have to change the ownership of this Tomcat server. So I'll show you how to do that. But before that, just tell me what is a deployment here, basically. When we say deployment, okay, so ultimately it is just a process of copying the artifacts, right? Deployment means it is a process of copying. Upon copying that artifact to that node, then the process of executing is different. Deployment depends upon your process. Upon deployment, it can run the script or run the artifacts. That is possible. Let's say I have installed these many tools in my machine, local machine, right? If I want to install this Visual Studio Code, what I'll do first? First, I need to download, then only I can run. So downloading Visual Studio Code means it is a process of deploying the Visual Studio Code in my local machine. It was developed and maintained in a separate server. The Visual Studio Code artifact is present in one particular server. From that server, I'm deploying it to my machine, right? So deploy means just a process of downloading the file. The download will not run automatically, correct? I need to explicitly run it by using Windows installer, or I need to manually go and start the service, right? So application deployment just a process of copying the artifacts to any target server from one server to another server. So now you have to be very clear with your servers. Like you need to identify the source server and the target server. So what is the source server now? In our case, where the artifact is present, that is the source server, right? So what is source server here in our case? So after identifying the source and target server, you need to identify the source path and the target path, correct? So in my source server, in which the artifact is present, it should be in the target folder. It will be like my web app.war file. Under my workspace directory, I have target folder. Within that, we have created the war file, correct? So this war file has to be copied to this server, means in which path you're going to maintain that. That is another important thing. So you have to keep this file in the Tomcat's default directory from where you can able to pick it for execution. So by default, Tomcat will use the web apps folder to maintain the war files. As like how your Maven maintains the target folder to maintain the war files, your Tomcat uses this web apps folder to maintain all the artifacts. So if I execute this cd/opt Tomcat web app, I have these many supportive components are there to run my artifacts. So always your target directory should be this one. All right. So within this target folder, you have to maintain. So upon deployment, your output will be something like this. This war file should be copied to your target folder. That's it. You're not supposed to copy this folder name. Only the war file should enter into this directory, whatever it is, whatever the number of war files that is. If you have 5 artifacts also, you can keep everything on the war file. Let's say, for example, I'll give you one quick example here. So when I say this is the default directory, default web page for Tomcat means from where this HTML page is getting displayed, from where this page is getting launched. If you go to the root folder here, you can able to find that index.jsp file. So this is what that JSP file, which is printing that site. So all your web applications will be maintained in this web apps folder. That is the default directory for Tomcat. So here under root, we are seeing this. So if you want to explicitly have your own artifacts, just maintain the war file directory here itself, it's possible. Or create a folder and maintain that folder. But while launching it, you have to properly give the folder reference and all. It's a complex process. And through the application logic, you can able to give a call to another or any other application artifacts. So now the point is, this is my target folder. So this target folder is present in my Tomcat server. And at this point of time, this folder is completely owned by the root user. If I try to use a DevOps admin user, if I say su DevOps admin, and if I navigate to the directory, web apps, see, it says permission denied. Why? Because this DevOps admin user is not having any access to this web app folder. But I want to perform all these deployment activities through DevOps admin user only. So further, what we can do here is we can change the access. That means the ownership of this particular directory to DevOps admin. So how to change the ownership means this is a command. Remember, we use chown command. So you can use chown just as a root user. Run the command chown -r DevOps admin is a user ID. If you want to give for group name also, you can give :group name. That's not an issue. And then specific directory. So R means recursive. All the files and folders of this Tomcat directory will be changed. The ownership will be changed to DevOps admin now. Now, if I say LL, you can see it is changed to DevOps admin user. So now as a DevOps admin user, if I try to access that folder, I should be able to access it. So these are some prerequisites, okay? Before you actually update or configure it in your pipeline, all these prerequisites should be completed. So these are the steps to be followed to configure the Tomcat server. So launch a node, install the required tools, and ensure that the server is up and running. And the Tomcat start command, it is purely based upon JDK. So use this command apt install default JDK to install JDK first and then start the service. Without JDK, you cannot start a Tomcat, okay? Please keep that point in mind. And then create the user, create proper access authorized key, and ensure that the user is having access to Tomcat. Simple. All right. So now we are ready with our Tomcat service. And this is the home directory for your Tomcat. So next we'll see how to configure this. Configure Tomcat, or I can say like integrate server in Jenkins Master. So this integration of Tomcat server, not only Tomcat server, any remote server, if you want to set up in Jenkins Master, that can be done through a Jenkins plugin called a publish OC plugin. So we'll see how to work on this plugin and configure this server target environment it is. So just go to your Jenkins Master node under Jenkins dashboard, just get in this manage Jenkins option, and here go to system configuration, global system configuration. So as we were talking about this, right? So which is used to define default properties of your Jenkins Master, and to set up your email or any other external servers, we can able to manage this, right? So from here only we are going to configure the remote server. But if you look into this, we don't have any plugins or capability to integrate any remote servers by default. Okay, we have email servers can be configured. So what you can do first, you have to install the plugin from the manage Jenkins. Go to your plugins manager and get in this available plugins tab and search for the plugin like publish over SSH. So we have this plugin which helps to send the build artifacts over SSH. There's a purpose of it. So it helps to upload the artifacts to any other target environment. So just get into this documentation, you get more details about this, how to set up everything. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to install this, and this plugin requires a restart. Okay, just click on install, and once the installation is completed, enable this option. Okay, this option will automatically restart this Jenkins service, because Jenkins service has to be restarted to make this changes immediate effect, because we are trying to configure it here, right? So that configuration will be available only if you restart Jenkins service. Just restarting Jenkins service. Okay, we're not restarting the entire VM. VM is already up and running. Only thing is the Jenkins service is getting restarted. So if I access this page again, now available plugins or install plugins, if I check publish over SSH is installed now, right? So with this, we have installed this plugin, and now go to your system configuration under manage Jenkins, go to system configuration, and now you should be able to see the publish over SSH is available for configuration now, right? We have just installed it, so it is available at the end of the page. It's available. So in this page, you have something called SS server add option. We click on this add option, it will allow you to add a new server here, which server you want to connect. So in my case, I want to connect to this Tomcat server. So let me add the server name here for my reference. And the host name should be the public IP address, private IP address of a Tomcat server. Take the private IP address of the Tomcat server and have it as a host name. And what is the username? I want to connect to this Tomcat server as a DevOps admin user, right? So the username should be DevOps admin. And what is the remote directory here on this node? I want to directly consider this as my remote directory. Why? Because once I connect to this machine, my intention is to copy the artifacts to this path. So I want to set up this as a default directory for this server. Got it? Now, in order to establish connection to the server as a DevOps admin, we need to enter the credentials, right? The keep secret keys. So it should be available in this directory. So you need to copy this private key of this DevOps admin user. And in this page, if you click on this advanced, if you expand this advanced option, you can see something called use password authentication or any other different keys. Just enable checkbox. It will open up a multi-line text box for your keypad. Just enter it here. Or if you enable the password authentication, just you can enter the password here. Should be fine. Easy. So process is very simple. Install the required plugin, that is publish OSS plugin, and go to the global system configuration. Under publish OSSH, you can find an option to add a new server. If you click on add server, you will get this dialog to enter the required server details. The server name, it is just for our reference, and the host name should be the private IP address of the Tomcat server, DevOps admin user ID, and the default directory. So please ensure that you give a proper name. This is very much essential. That is the reason I just explained this process now, right? The target folder name. So once you're clear with this, add your key pair. And upon configuring this, right, if you want, you can able to quickly test the connection. There is something called test configuration. If you click on the test configuration from your Jenkins master node using the publish OSS plugin, it will connect to that remote server, and you can see the connection is successfully executed. So if there's any issue with your username or what is it called, a key pair, something, let's say if I use the DevOps admin 1 here, just an incorrect ID. Say it says failed to connect. So unable to set up the connection, authentication failed. The key pair, whatever you're given here, it is not associated to this user, right? So like this, you'll be getting the error on the same page, correct? So in order to successfully establish a connection, your host name, username, and the key pair, these 3 parameters are very much important. So once the server integration is done, you can simply save the configuration. That's it. We are good with the integration now. Now, the next step is how we can able to use it in our pipeline. If you can see a pipeline project, in this pipeline project, we have just 3 stages. Like already we have completed the application build and we have the artifacts available now. So all that we're going to here is we are going to take that artifacts and deploy it to the target environment. So how we are going to add that stage means you can use your pipeline syntax generator here. So click on this snippet generator, and here under the sample step, you can find something called SSH publisher here. So this option will be available only if you install that publish OSS plugin. Correct. So using this sample step, you can able to configure your plugin. And for this plugin configuration, I'm just adding the server, whatever server I configured here. So it is automatically getting populated. Like this, what are servers we have configured in our publish OSS plugin, everything will be available in this drop down for our access. Now, my requirement is through my pipeline project, I want to connect to the server and copy the source file. So what is the source file here? The source file is this one. It can be any WAR file within the target folder I want to copy. Right. So already the job will be in the home directory of my workspace, and under that workspace folder, we have target folder, and I want to copy the WAR file here. And where I want to copy this WAR file? This WAR file has to be copied to the web apps folder. So this web apps folder is already configured in our plugin, right? So I want to use this current directory. So whenever you want to refer the current directory, you can simply use dot in Linux. So dot always refers to the current directory of this server, correct? So this is the current directory which we have configured, correct? So my requirement is I want to copy the WAR file from this node, that is from this workspace folder to this remote directory. Easy? Clear now? And another important thing is, if you simply copy this WAR file, right, it will try to copy the entire folder into this one. But my intention is just to copy the WAR files. So what I can do here is I can simply remove the prefix from my source files. So there is an option called remove prefix. With this option, we can simply remove the prefix that is defined or maintained in this file name. As part of your pipeline project, if you can see the outcome of this, this job is already running on this workspace folder. On this workspace folder, we have a target created. Within the target, we have a war file. So I'm not interested to copy this folder name and all. I just need only the war file name. So I want to remove the prefix from the file. So we just removing it now. So now with all these parameters, if you click on generate, you can see the script has been generated for you. So this is what you're going to code in your stage, pipeline stage. The snippet, whatever generated here, I just added to my pipeline stage. That's it. So we are going to use a publisher, SSH publisher, to connect to this node and transfer the file. This is a source file into this remote directory by removing the prefix. Simple. So with this, if you run your script, you should be able to deploy that war file. So now in my target environment, if I go to that path, Tomcat web app, I don't have any war files at this point of time. So what we can do here is we can run this job. You can see this compiling, creating unit test, artifacts getting created. It's done. So as part of the last stage, just connect to the server and complete the task. So now if I get into the server, I should be able to see the war file is deployed to this machine. You see? So since we already directly deployed this war file in this Tomcat folder, when you run your Tomcat service, you can able to access your application directly. The application source code is available here, right? This is a source code. This is my application. So ultimately, this is the web page, web application that we are trying to deploy through our Java Maven Spring Boot web application framework. So process very simple. If you want, you can verify again. So this artifact has been created at this point of time. So if you run the job again, let me make some changes in the script, something like this. And if I commit the changes, assume that developer has made some changes in source code repository and they can simply run this job. Just with a single click, the code can be identified. The latest changes has been identified into the build server, and the build environment will create the artifacts, and the artifacts can be promoted to the target environment. So the latest artifacts is picked up now. So once you have the latest artifacts available, you can just use your Tomcat server to verify the result. So my Tomcat server is already up and running in this node, right? So what I can do, I can use the web artifacts name. What is the artifact ID here? It is demo 01.0 -snapshot. This is the artifact ID. So I can use that ID on my web browser. So this is my application, which is running in Tomcat, correct? So this is a web application that is deployed in target environment, and using this Tomcat server, we can able to run that application. So the changes, whatever we made in our source code, I can able to see the latest changes are getting deployed to my target environment. So this process, right, whatever we did now, it's all like a manual process, we can say. Developer has to make some changes in source code repository and they have to manually click on this build to run the job, right? But in real time, what we can do means we can update the same job configuration with some build triggers. Using build triggers, we can able to automate the builds. Like there are various options using build periodic option or GitHub webhook or poll SCM. Using any of these options, we can able to automate the process of build and deployment. That is also possible through Jenkins. That is what the concept of scheduling a jobs. All right. So our next topic will be build triggers. That is to automate the Jenkins job scheduling. So next we'll see how to schedule your jobs through Jenkins build trigger options. So when I say Jenkins build trigger, right? Like if you can see our job configurations here. Yes. So just go to the job configuration and you can able to see some options like build periodic, and we have something called GitHub webhook and poll SCM. Okay, so these are some options available to automate your builds. So this Git build periodic option is based on the cron tab. Okay, so it means you can able to schedule the Jenkins job to run based on the cron tab definitions. So cron tab definition means just like scheduling, like at what time when you want to schedule, and this is for any. It is applicable for any Jenkins job. So it means it is not just for your CI/CD process. Okay, it can be for any process automation. For example, consider I want to perform a task, and to perform the task, I need to schedule the job to run on the specific time. The task, it can be anything. don't focus just about the CI/CD. Apart from CI/CD, we have a lot of use cases in real-time scenario. Okay, if you want, I can give you one real-time scenario what we usually use, right? Consider I have some environments, right? We have something called non-prod environments and the production environments, right? So in both these environments, we have some servers, non-prod servers and production servers will be available. So what is the availability of this non-prod and production servers? What should be availability here? This production servers should be available 24/7, correct? All my production servers should be up and running 24/7 because my live applications are running there, correct? What about your non-prod server? Do you need to run those servers 24/7? Not required. No, let's say I can have my non-prod environments like my dev environment or my test environment, right? Like QA, UAT, and all those stuff. So when we say non-prod servers, these non-prod servers should be available only during your business hours, correct? I want to make my non-prod servers up and running only during the business hours. It means if I say something like morning 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., assume that. So all the non-prod servers should be started exactly at 8 a.m. and it should be stopped at 10 p.m. If I'm running these non-prod servers 24/7, again, it impacts the billing, right? It just, leads to cost. So honestly, we should not run these things. And also it should be available only during weekdays. I want to stop the servers during my weekends. If there is any ad hoc requirement, I can able to keep it running. But ideally is these servers should be available between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. during the weekdays. That's it. This is the requirement. So like this, I'll be having around 100 plus dev servers and 100 plus test servers at enterprise level, right? And practically we cannot start all these servers manually, correct? If you try to start all these servers manually, right, it is not possible. And also it's not possible to stop exactly at 10 p.m. So what we can do here is we can create one Jenkins job and schedule the job to run at 8 a.m. to start the service. Similarly, we can have another job that can be scheduled to run at 10 p.m. to stop all the services. Easy? So that is how we can able to use build periodic option to automate the scheduling. You see, it is no way related to CSU. It is not, this use case is not for continuous integration or deployment process. It is just to start up the service. This is one use case scenario. Like this, we have a lot of things to consider. Like in my earlier case, we are using something called build server. In this build server, we are trying to download the entire source code repository. And once the repository is downloaded, it is going to perform the build and create the artifacts, right? So this entire artifact is getting created in this workspace folder. So like this, on daily basis, we'll be creating n number of builds, and each and every build definitely consumes a lot of resources, right? So what we usually do means we need to do some periodic cleanup of those build server. Like ideally what we do, we just have last 3 days builds will be there. So the builds that are outdated, which is there for more than 2 days, it should be automatically removed. Or end of the day, I want to clean up all the workspace folder, and I have to make my system clean with all the artifacts and all. Don't want to keep anything in my build server. Like this, to do some periodic cleanup of your server and effectively manage your memory, we can use this build periodic option. So these are some real-time implementations, okay, use cases you can consider. So now to work with this build periodic option, it's very simple. Just go to your job configuration page. On this job configuration page, what you can do means you can choose this option, build periodic option. So as soon as you enter the build periodic option, you can see it opened up the schedule. And if you're not sure about what to code here, just click on this question mark. Okay, it's a help feature. So it will give you the complete picture about what this field is all about. It is going to define your cron tab settings, and any cron tab will be having 5 important parameters like minutes, hours, day of the month, and the day of a week. And they're given you some sample parameters also for scheduling. Like this is something used to run the job for every 15 minutes. So if I use this cron tab definition here, this job will be executed for every 15 minutes. Okay. If you want run for every 1 minute, this is the syntax. Correct. Or you can simply say asterisk. So when you say asterisk, it runs the jobs every minute. Correct. So if you want to learn more about the cron tab, I'll give you one reference, web reference. It's very common. Now, once we set up this, you can able to schedule the job to run for every minute. And if you want to explore more about this cron tab, you can use this web reference. It's a very common thing which we usually use in real time. I mean, in our actual work also. So this will give you a picture about how to use this cron type, and they have a lot of good examples also. If you can see the examples here. So they covered almost all the possible scenarios, starting from enabling your script to run on every minute or every 2 minutes, or if you want to run for every 20 minutes or every 1 hour, 2 hours, or if you want to start the job exactly at 8 a.m. every day, this is a cron tab for this. Okay. If you want to start the job for every weekend, you can able to define this cron tab. So just go to this link, understand the parameters, and you can make use of it in your job configuration. Easy. So the logic is once you define this in a build periodic option, it just triggers. It won't wait for anything. Once it reaches a schedule, it automatically start the job. So now if you can see the job here, we have executed the last build as build number 8. So this build number 8 was started by this Jenkins user, right? So just wait for a minute. It will trigger one more build because we just saved here as a build periodic option. And within a minute, it will trigger one more job. So like this, irrespective of your source code changes, if you want to schedule a job to run, you can use your build periodic option. And the next thing is about GitHub Webhook. GitHub Webhook is very frequently used for achieving this. See here, in the meantime, you can see build number 9 got triggered. It has completed the execution. If you go to the console output of this build number 9, you can see it was start by the timer, not by the manual execution. It will start by the timer here. All right. So if you are not canceling this schedule, it will keep on running the job for every minute. So build number 10 is getting executed now. So let me remove this build periodic option for now. Otherwise, it'll keep on getting executed, right? So let me remove it for now. Easy. So the next option here is about GitHub Webhook. So this GitHub Webhook is very frequently used to achieve continuous integration, or I can say like CI/CD. So it is based on the source code change. So it means whenever there is any changes happen in source code repository, as soon as the source code was updated, GitHub Webhook will trigger the build. It will not wait for any schedule. As soon as we make any changes in the repository, it will just trigger the build. That's it. Okay. So that is a basic logic behind here. But in order to do this, you need your webhook, your Jenkins, use Jenkins URL along with your GitHub webhook tag in the repository. That is very much important. So I'll show you how to set up this webhook configuration. Listen, please. So just go to your source code repository. This is a repository. We have our application code, okay, not your training document, okay. The source code, whatever you mentioned in your SCM stage, the source code repository. Go to this repository, and here you can see something called settings. Go to the repository level settings, and in this repository level settings, you can see something called webhooks. Okay, webhooks. Click on add webhook. And let me authenticate this. So we are trying to add one new webhook URL to automate the build. So in this add webhook option, you need to enter the payload URL. The payload URL is nothing but a Jenkins URL followed by GitHub webhook tag. That's it. Okay. And let the content type be JSON. It is just like giving a API call, and for what event you're going to do that. So whenever I push any changes to my repository, I want to trigger this build. That's my requirement. So the event is push event. Or if I say send me everything, means whatever the action I perform on this repository, whether it is creating a branch or updating a branch or creating a pull request, whatever the action I perform on this repository, for every action, this webhook will get triggered. Or you can able to choose from your events list. There are a huge list of events available because GitHub is not just for managing source code, right? We have a lot of use cases there. So for any action you want to perform, you can able to invoke it. But in our case, we are going to use push event, and just ensure that you make this webhook as active. All right. So that is how we manage our, create our webhook configuration. We cannot rely on the public IP address here. It should be your, we cannot rely on the private IP address. It should be your public IP address only. And as you all know, public IP will change whenever you restart your server, right? So whenever you restart your server, you have to get into this page and update the URL. That's mandatory because you're using a demo server. But in real-time environment, it will not happen because you're going to use some static IP address there. So you can very well use the same IP there. Just click on add URL. That's it. Easy. So this is how we create our webhook configuration for our GitHub repository. So once you create a webhook URL on the repository level, go to your pipeline project. So just go to the configuration page. I think it's here already. In this configuration page, you can simply enable this checkbox, GitHub trigger for Git SCM polling. Just enable the checkbox and save the project. That's it. Now, the point is the repository we are given here, right? So how the work happens means Jenkins, it will keep on monitoring this repository because we have enabled the GitHub webhook here. And as soon as you make any changes in the repository, let me go back to the repository and I'll make some changes. It be like webhook, commit the changes. So as soon as we commit the changes, what happens, it just get into this webhook and the job which is associated to that particular webhook configuration. I think we are updated here, right? In this job. Yeah. I think I saved it also. So it will automatically trigger a build there. See, build number 11 is getting triggered. Can you see this? So this build number 11, it is based upon the source code change, whatever we made. As soon as you commit the changes in the repository, it will automatically trigger the build. See, the status is started by GitHub push event by that GitHub user. This low ETA is a GitHub user actually. This user ID, correct? So whenever we want to perform the automated builds, we can use your GitHub webhook. So this is something usually we prefer in CI/CD process. So it means developers no need to worry about the manual job trigger. Okay, so from their Visual Studio Code, as soon as they publish the changes to the remote repository, the job will get triggered. It will identify the source code, perform build, create the artifacts, deploy to the target server, and we can set up the email notification to update the status of the deployment. Easy. So that is about your GitHub webhook. As soon as the source code is committed, the GitHub will trigger the build job. So update this URL configuration, right? So this should be your Jenkins server's external URL. So this is about GitHub webhook. And apart from there is something called poll SCM. So what is the need for poll SCM means? This poll SCM also used to schedule a job. Okay, the same as like your build periodic option. It uses some schedule using cron tab. But the point is, it is used to schedule a job only if there is any commit happened in the source code repository. All right. So it is based upon a cron tab basically. And let me refresh the page. See, I can see this is evidence of our GitHub webhook changes. I've made some code commit and as soon as I made the code commit, the job got triggered. That is the latest build. And as part of the build, the latest change has been identified and deployed to target environment. I can access the latest changes in my web browser, right? This is the latest comment I made here. Similarly, let me update one more change for this book. Sorry, poll SCM here. So let me remove this option and save this as poll SCM. So when you try to use a poll SCM option, it will ask for the schedule. Okay. So when I say like this, it will try to run the job for every minute, but only if there is any changes happen in the repository. So the basic difference between build periodic and poll SCM means the build periodic option will run the job based upon schedule. It won't check for any other parameters. But the poll SCM, it will try to run the job in the given schedule only if there is any changes happen in the repository, right? That is a basic difference. So the scheduling, if you want, you can have some real-time use cases. See, let's say, for example, consider I have a test cycle. Test cycle means at any enterprise level, right, will be scheduling your test jobs in a given period of time. For example, consider I have a schedule at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. testing team will pick up my source code for testing, QA testing. And the next slot will be at 12 p.m. And the next slot will be at 3 p.m. Like this, on daily basis, I have 3 scheduled for my testing. This is a test cycle. So what we're trying to achieve here is, my requirement is not to immediately test my changes. As soon as I commit the code, I don't want to test it for QA level. So between 8 and 12, what all changes happen in the repository, I have to collect all those changes. And at 12 o'clock, I want to schedule my testing. For example, consider morning 8 a.m., the test job started. It has identified all the changes, whatever you made on the previous night. And 8 o'clock, the testing has been completed. Assume that. Now, between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m., that 4 hours time will be utilized by the developers. In this 4 hours of time, developers can able to make any number of commits on the repository. So consolidating all these things at 12 p.m., the job will start. It will pick up the code and do the testing. Like that, the next slot will start at 3 p.m. So here the point is, as soon as it reaches 12 p.m., it won't start the job. It will check if there is any changes happen in the repository or not. Because between 8 and 12, if there is no changes happen in the repository, there is no point in triggering the test cycle, right? Assume that in the given 4 hours of time, no developers made changes in repository. There is nothing to test. Then what is the purpose of triggering the build here, right? Test job here, right? So that matters. So for such use cases, we can use poll SCM. So it is used to schedule a Jenkins job to run based upon cron tab definition only if there is any commit happen in the repository. 12 o'clock will check for the schedule. If there are changes happened, it executes. Otherwise, it won't trigger the job. So in our case, if I say every minute means 60 seconds are there. Within the 60 seconds, if I make any changes, then only the job will get triggered. For example, let me update to exit for every minute and apply the changes. I just save the job now. As soon as I save the job, it won't trigger the build because it's not a simple build periodic option. It will just verify my source code repository. And even after commit also, it won't trigger immediately. Once it reaches the schedule, it triggers it. So let me go to my repository and update this. This for let's commit this. So whether this commit will immediately trigger the build, no, it will wait for 60 seconds to complete. Okay. And once it completes 60 seconds and reaches 1 minute, it just triggers a build. So let me go back to my job. See, it has triggered a minute time. So now if I go to this console output, I can see this job is started by SEM change. All right. So it's a very much important, okay, like as an administrator, Jenkins administrator, just by looking into the job, you should be able to figure out by this console output itself, whether the job is started by the users manually or it is started by the build periodic option or policy or GitHub webhook. There are differences. So the very first line, it just helps you to identify the trigger by whom or when it started. Easy. So these are the 4 important methods to trigger your Jenkins job at any point of time. So now the next important thing is about your email notifications, because as part of our Jenkins, we can see here, right? So what is the basic role here? We have performed all these things now. Using Jenkins, we can able to perform the automated builds, automated unit testing, and code promotion also is done. But how we can notify the user, that matters, right? So this user notification can be done through your Jenkins user email notification service is there for that purpose. So I'll show you how to set up that one. So what you're going to do here is, it's very simple. Just go to your Jenkins dashboard, and from here, go to Manage Jenkins and select your system configuration. Under system configuration, if you can scroll down, there is an option called email notification. Just above the publish, or you can find something called email notification. So this is the area where you can set up your email server, SMTP server, simple mail transfer protocol. So at enterprise level, I guess most of the time you'll be using your Microsoft Outlook, right? Or you'll be using your Gmail also, correct? So whatever the remote server, email server you have, you need to specify the server name and the default server details. And if you expand this advanced option, you can able to specify the SMTP server authentication, the protocol, the SMTP server port number, and the test configuration. Everything can be done from here. So for this demo, we are going to use our Gmail service. So you should know how to set up the Gmail server in Jenkins. So I'll quickly show you how it works. Once I'll give you the steps. Hope you all have Gmail account, right? So first, let me show you the use case. Okay, for what purpose we'll be setting up the builds and all. So whenever we talk about Jenkins email notification, right? Based on the status, job status, we can send the email notifications. So for example, if you run any job, okay, the job, it will be getting into the success state, or it will be in the failure state, or it can be in unstable state. So these are 3 states of your job. Okay. So in all these 3 stages, if you want to notify, send an email notification, you can able to use this email notification plugin from Jenkins. So how it is possible means, as a post build action, we can configure the email notifications. Okay. Now to enable the email notification, if you're using a Gmail server means, first you have to integrate Gmail server to your Jenkins. For that, all that you can do here is, you can follow this process. Okay. For the Gmail server, all I'm saying, first you have to set up your email server in Jenkins system configuration. So to set up that email server in Jenkins configuration, you need to go to Jenkins, manage Jenkins and system configuration, and then select the email notification. That's what I was showing you here. Under system configuration, we have email notification, right? And there you have to enter your SMTP server URL. For Gmail server, this is a URL smtp.gmail.com and the SMTP port is 465 for Gmail. So you can update the server name and the port number here. And then, sorry, you can update your login details. Like go to your Gmail account and go to your Gmail account settings. And you need to first enable the multi-factor authentication. So once you log into your Gmail account, go to your Gmail account settings, and at the left side panel, you can see something called security tab. Click on security tab, you will get an option to enable two-way authentication or multi-factor authentication. So if you click on add two-way authentication, it will ask for a mobile number for verification, enter mobile number, and you'll be getting some OTP to verify mobile number. That's it. So you can use your authenticator app to verify that. Once it is done, on the same security tab, security panel, in the search bar, if you look for app password, it will allow you to generate an app token. Okay. Because to set up your Gmail server, we need the SMTP username and password for authentication. Got it? So usually we never use the password which you use to log into Gmail account. That password is used only for web access, but through your external service or any APIs or CLI commands, if you want to log into your web application, it should be done based upon a token-based authentication, as like how we did in our GitHub access token, right? Similarly, here we use app token. So this app password or app token can be generated only if you enable the two-way authentication. So you can consider this as a prerequisite. Try to cover these 4 points in upcoming session. And once you create an app password, right, you'll be getting a 16 bytes of app token. Just save it, preserve it somewhere, and you can use it in your configuration here as a password. In the next session, we'll see how to set up this.